Let's turn Hangman into a graphical program. So in order to make a graphical Hangman, we can use tkinter again. So we import tkinter. We want to be able to show output and get a message, and we also want to be able to show an image. Now the images we will use are of course of the game Hangman. So I've attached the images. You can see those are Hangman images that, depending on the state of the game, it should show a different image. Now in order to show an image, we initialize a window, main window. We set the title. We set window size and width and height using the function geometry. And then what you want to do is to load an image. Now I have placed the images inside the directory images, which are the same images, these images. You can download those images as attached file. So we load the image from the disk. Then we create a so-called photo image, which can be placed in the tkinter window using the image that we loaded. Then we attach the image to a label. Now labels are added to a window, and you can place that. So now if you run the program, you see it shows the image. Now the next thing to do is of course to ask a question, because now it still asks that question in the terminal, and we don't need to ask in the terminal. We want a graphical window that asks us what is the next letter. So let's make it ask the question graphically. So we can use that simple dialog.askString to ask a letter or a question. So note we just change input to simple dialog.askString, which asks a letter graphically. So if we run the program, you see a pop-up here asking for the letter. Then it can output text, right? We have the print function here. So it outputs if the word contains the key, it outputs you win or you lose or wrong. So in order to do that, we can do message box.show info. So instead of print, we have message box.show info with a window title and text. We change the print function into that. So then we have graphical input and output. If I run it, you see we can guess a letter. Example A, it shows wrong. B, depending on the words, if we press G, it just happens, it shows the letter. Now of course, in the game of Hangman, you don't want to actually show the words when you're playing the game. That would be very silly. So you can change that. Instead of saying word contains, literally you can just say word contains letter. So with a quote around it. That way it won't show the word when you're playing. If we run it again, we can guess a letter, for example A, which is not in the word. If we press G, we know the word is good morning. So now it just says word contains G, which is what you want, right? You don't want to show the actual word, but just word contains the letter. And the game continues, so you can play the game. However, the picture stays the same. So the next step is to show the change of the picture. So instead of one image, you want an image list, a list of images, where we add every image to that list. So in this case, we have 8 images or 7 images. So we can say for I in range 0 to 7, image list, we add it to the list, image.open images/hangman 0 with the number, and it's a PNG file. So we reference the image list here, first one, and if you run it, you'll see there is no image 0, 0, so we need to start counting from 1 until image 8. So now it referenced the image from the list. The image list now contains all of the images. So all of the images, all of these images. So for example, if I would say 5 here, it would start with the 5th image, which is a different image, right? So now we can change the image based on the score. So instead of always showing the same image, we want to update the image each wrong guess. So we can just copy this whole code here. Can remove this space. Copy it and place it here. And now instead of referencing the first item in the image list, we want to reference the number of guessed or the wrong guesses. So change that into no guess. And then you'll see the image updates if a wrong guess is made. So we can guess a wrong letter, for example Q, and you'll see the picture updates. If we do the same wrong guess, it continues. However, we cannot display more images than exist, right? So we only load about 7 images, and if we do again, you'll see we get a buffer overflow. So you'll notice that in max tries, this error happens because we are trying to load an image which doesn't exist. So the number of max tries can never be more than the number of loaded images. In this case we have 10 maximum tries, but the number of images is 7. So we need to change this to 7 because we can never display more images than we have here. Right, because the number of guesses increase and max tries was 10, there is no 10th image. So max tries needs to be 7, which is the number of images. If we run the program again, we can do the guesses. Or in this case we're doing wrong guesses. And you see now it still exits with out of range. So because it starts counting from 0, so it needs to be 6. And do it again. And it says you lose and just exits without a crash. So now we have the basic game of Hangman. Now I deliberately was picking the wrong letters, but of course we can also win the game. Choose a wrong letter in between. Well, we know what the word is, so we can guess all the letters correctly. And actually I think I should have all the letters now. So we can win the game as well as lose right now. So we have a playable Hangman game. We can lose the game. You see that if we guess the wrong letters, it adds to the picture. So we can win and lose the game. So we turned this whole game into a graphical game. You can play around with it, run it yourself, or try to do it yourself with the basic Hangman game and try to turn it into a graphical Hangman game using the TK intermodule. So depending on what you prefer, it's a good exercise to try to turn the terminal or the console version into a graphical version with tkinter. I've attached the images as well as the code, so you can use that as reference.